Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Executive Insights by Mediacorp. Today, we are talking about how you can get ahead of the youth curve. I'm Zheng, your host for today. I work on commercial insights and performance here at Mediacorp. Let me introduce our speakers for today. First, we have Mandy Howe, Managing Editor of Babelfish. Now, this is her bio. Besides being a pantry rat and mothership, Mandy was also the lifestyle and entertainment editor, where she started and grew the pillar with food, event, and celebrity news. For several years till 2020, she also led the mothership Instagram team to become the most followed Singaporean news channel on the platform. After 6 years at Mothership, she's now frying a different fish called Babelfish, something we will share with you more during this presentation. Mandy, would you like to say hi to all of us?
Yeah, sure. Hi. So yeah, as Song mentioned, I was previously with Mothership, but now with Babelfish, but which is also related to Mothership, and we'll talk more about that later. Yeah.
Thanks. Next, we have Simone Lam, Head Growth and Audio at Mediacorp. Simone currently heads the growth and audio team within Mediacorp's consumer group, overseeing Mediacorp Entertainment Radio, as well as driving youth and digital growth initiatives on platforms like Mediacorp Drama and Entertainment YouTube channels, the Creators Network, 8 Days, and Me Listen. Now, previously, Simone also managed the Chinese entertainment portfolio across the transmedia, and before that, she headed the content and partnership team at MeWatch. Commissioning its first co-pro, Blue Tick, Simone also played a pioneering role in launching Mediacorp's video-on-demand service and creating the first interactive web drama Let's Play Love during her time with the Sin MSN team. Simone, would you like to say hi to our guest today?
Hi, morning, everyone. Very excited to be here today. I've always enjoyed working with young people like Zheng and Mandy. So yeah, today will be an exciting time with all of you.
Thanks, Simone. Now, before we begin, may I invite all of us to answer a simple poll, just so that we know who we're speaking with this morning. Are you 18 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, or 55 and above? Just so that we know whether we are youths, speaking to youths, or, we want to see whether you have what trouble we may anticipate, what troubles you may have reaching out to youths coming from our different experiences. Well, all right. We can see from the poll clearly here that a majority of us are former graduates of the youth group. All right, no problem. Now, this will be a very interesting presentation and webinar conversation for all of you, so that you can see how youths are thinking of these days. Now,
this is quite representative of the Singapore population as well, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely right. Now, before we to start us off, here are some essential data that you have to build the foundation of your understanding to youths in Singapore. Now, youths form 25% of Singapore's population. And if you can see, the group size has shrunk by 3% over the past 10 years. What this really means is a shrinking pool of fresh blood to the workforce, coupled with everybody retiring a bit later, progression opportunities are further limited, forcing them to remain junior in their organizations longer. Now, over the same course of time, more are receiving higher education. Youths who are university graduates have grown by 23%. So not that they're just very well educated, we must remember that they are also very tech savvy. Now, this tech savviness is probably most highlighted in this employment piece of data. We see the largest shift in interest and employment towards one of the fastest growing economic sector, which is information and communications. Now, you might be wondering, what is this sector about? We are thinking big tech global firms such as Google, Facebook, Alibaba, and also regional players such as Garena, Grab, Lazada, and Razer. Now, in 2021 alone, saw 13.6% growth in the number of youths working in this industry. Therefore, in engaging the youth, you need to think of these tech platforms first. Now, besides admin, public admin and education, as you can see on the screen, the other key industry that has suffered from this has been the wholesale and retail trade, seeing a decline in the youths within these two industries the most. Now, over to their personal life, you can see that they're getting married later or preferring to stay single. If you focus on the top right, you can see that the median age of couples have now approached 30. Right? Just think about it. Okay, since most of you are in a different age group, just think of when you got married. Chances are it wasn't 30. Now, if we look at the bottom, the percentage of you staying single past 30 for both male and female have grown by almost 5 percentage points just between 2019 and 2021 alone. It's just a 2-year span, and you can see such a big growth. So currently, 45% of male youths are still single after 30, and 35% of female youths are still single after 30. Now you must be wondering, how does this impact your brand? I'm not in the wedding services, right? However, if they are getting married later and staying single, brands like you now have a longer window to engage them and turn them into loyalists before their priorities change as they get married. Next, we look at mental health, right? Despite a rebound in life satisfaction scores since the low of 2019, their sense of life satisfaction has still declined compared to 7 years ago in 2016. Now, considering this state of mind, brands really need to work towards either lifting their moods or addressing their key concerns in order to stand out. Now, with more education, getting married later, overall mental health being impacted, what could their key concerns be? Well, we think that the Today Annual Youth Survey gives us a clue. Now, this survey is the second of a series that we do annually, and we have started in 2022. We surveyed 1,000 youths and examined the social perception and attitudes of Singapore youths towards different key social issues. These topics that we examine are education, career, housing, civic participation, gender identity, mental health, climate change and sustainability, inflation and the cost of living, and lastly, politics and social compact. Now, obviously, we do not have time today to share with you all these fantastic insights, but let me point you to where you can find them. Now, you will be able to find them on the Today Online website. There is a series of 6 articles and 3 webinars that you can access. And while this provides us with content on Today to engage with you, this research study also informs Mediacorp and our partners on how the youth are thinking. And you will be able to find how these insights may be able to help you influence or reach their hearts. This annual youth survey has become a must-see for our commercial partners. And jumping straight into an insight that I would like to share with you today is the inflation and cost of living. Now, 60% of the youth shared that they are concerned about housing and renovation. Just look at the chart. Not chart, the meme. Imagine the dream house that they have, but now with the higher cost of living, they are only able to afford a shell of what their dreams may look like. Now, not only have they been concerned about housing and renovation, which stands at number 1, they are also concerned about number 2, utilities, number 3, healthcare. Going to the previous slide, please. Number 4, groceries, and number 5, the cost of food. Now, if we just categorize youth, that will be quite unfair as a one big chunk. There are so many subgroups to them. Now, let me just shed some light on which groups have been the most heavily impacted by the change in housing cost of living. They are the 18 to 24 years old. They are the males. They are those that already have children. They are those whose highest education attained have been secondary school and lower, and those whose household income do not exceed 4,000 per month. Now, not only are they impacted by inflation and cost of living, they also live in an information-rich environment. And access to all these different conflicts in the world, the wars, the climate change, they're so impacted by so much information that they feel like they need to do something. 75% feel that it is important for themselves to participate actively in civic discourse, and 79% feel that individuals can make a difference regarding climate change and sustainability. This really unpacks why they live in so much stress, right? Not only impacted by high cost of living, they also want to participate in all these larger causes. When to the Gen X and boomers, they are really just babies, like we can see in this meme. Now that I've shared this macro data with you, is it enough for us to start engaging youth effectively? I would like to invite Simone to share further how she's used such data to create avenues for engagement with the youth. Simone?
Thanks, Zheng. These are indeed very interesting insight of our youth. In fact, over the past year, my team and I, we've been we took a lot of time trying to understand who they are, what they like, how's their day like. And what we did was we took into account data like what Zheng shared, and we commissioned survey focus group amongst the different types of youth, whether they are in IHL or internal younger colleagues, and obviously respondents that the MRC folks recruited. From the data that we collected, we are then able to define them into 5 possible persona, namely lifestyle seeker, social advocate, hustler, aspirational youth, and the non-committer. Bearing in mind that these personas are basically like descriptors of our youth, right? So at any point in time, you may feel that you may gravitate towards certain of this persona, but the persona may change as you progress through your life transition stages, right? And the other thing to note is that because these are descriptors, these are not uniquely defining each and every single youth. Okay, so let me just give you a slight insight into each and every one of them. Starting with lifestyle seeker. This is probably your first jobber. They just enter the workforce. So there is a sense of wanting to elevate their lifestyle. There's also a sense of, social pressure because they're entering the workforce together with all their peers. So there's a sense of competition amongst them. There is also possibly a slight identity crisis because they're so young, right? They just started working, and there's a disconnect between who they are and what they want to be. Yes, basically, they're still trying to figure out life. And with the social advocate, and I'm sure many of you would have seen our youth in this category. In fact, in my workspace, I do encounter quite a fair bit of them belonging to this category. These are people who are very passionate about the causes that they believe in. So passionate that they actively seek out information online and participate in conversation, discussion, debate. They seek out different platforms for them to have a voice. And they value content and information that actually helps them get ahead of their conversation. The next group is what we'll call hustler. This is the group of people. Remember earlier on, Zheng talked about how, remember the meme that he shared with the horse, a proper horse on the left and then a hand-drawn horse on the side. Yeah, this is the group of people that I'm referring to, hustler. They're extremely concerned about cost of living in Singapore. They're constantly on the lookout of how to, stretch their dollar, whether picking on a side hustle or what can they do to do better in life, which also leads to the other important factor to note, that mental wellness means a lot to this group. Okay, aspirational youth. Now, this is a group of people, of you, who are typically your very motivated to succeed youth. They will plan, they will strive, they will do whatever they can to gain financial independence and stability. Basically, they're trying to get out of the space where they're considered youth. They want to be seen as an adult. Now, this is the other one that, again, I see quite a fair bit in the younger youth category. We call them the non-committer. Why? They generally like to be spoon-fed. They are FOMO. Anybody knows what FOMO is? I'm sure you guys know, right?
Simone, is FOMO still even a phrase that they relate to? Mandy, do you have insights on this?
I think I'm too old, so I still use FOMO.
Yeah, so the other thing that is very distinct about them really is when you see them spending a lot of time scrolling through, just mindless scrolling, because that's how they distress, that's how they consume their content. There you go, that's our 5 different persona. So
at this juncture, maybe let's do a poll. Can everyone please pick the persona that resonates most with you? Now, I know that all of you are obviously, recent past youths, but I'm sure there is one persona that relates most to you. Mandy, I'm wondering which one do you resonate with the most?
I can't say like one in particular. I think I'm more of a hybrid. I see certain traits of myself in hustler. Maybe less financial planning because I bought Starbucks twice last week. So
Yeah, actually for myself, I relate to lifestyle seeker, and actually just the part where Simone mentioned, still trying to figure my life out, right? I hope this doesn't, kill any confidence of the guest in me today. But yeah, I think I am still trying to figure life out, and I'm no longer even a youth, right? All right, let's take a look at the results. Simone, any comments here for what we see in this group?
it's very interesting that we are actually seeing non-committer here as well.
Yeah, I think we can imagine people will be afraid to say that they are non-committal even though they are, right? So I
Yeah.
guess we have a really honest, open, and group of people that have achieved a sense of enlightenment that they don't feel judged anymore, right? Okay, so maybe I can continue and share something interesting. Now that we have a sense of what persona you're in, let's see how we can reach you if you're still a youth, right? Now, this is how youth spend their time in a weekly basis. So unsurprising to all of us, we have 24% time spent being on social media. However, what could be surprising to different groups of guests over here, it could be video, where video is actually number 1. It could be audio, which is following very closely at number 3. And you can see the other range of activities that they spend during their free time, right? But it would be unfair to just leave you with this chart and no further insights into Gen Z as well as millennials. Let's dive further into Gen Zs and where they're spending their time. Now, I know it's very colorful. I'm just going to stay here for 5 seconds. So just to let you glean through what this chart shares with you, it is the weekly time spent by Gen Zs, right? Over in the turquoise, we saw that video was number 1. You can see YouTube, you can see Netflix, you can see Channel 8, you can see Channel U. And what I discovered recently, there is a website called Bilibili, which is a Chinese streaming website. Now, over in number 2, in social media, it's in black. You'll be able to see the regulars, X, Instagram, Facebook, but also most importantly, TikTok, a very key platform that is fast growing. Now, what could be interesting to some of you is the one in green, audio. You see the likes of Apple Music there, but there's also 987, Warner, and Class 95, meaning to say they still listen to radio. And you could see over here 2 things I would like to highlight that are unique to Gen Zs. All right. Number 1 is the bar in purple. That's Twitch, that's gaming, and that is something that is very, very key. And more importantly, a very, very engaged group of youth using that platform. And the other highlight I would like to point out is Reddit in white, following shortly just after Twitch. This is where they get to comment and have discussions on forums, right? Now, just have this chart in your head, and let's move on to the next chart in millennials, where we can see a clear shift in priorities. You can see that audio has actually grown. You can see that gaming has actually gone down. Can we have the millennial chart, please? Yes, here we go. You can see how there is a growth in audio. You start to see, yes, 987, Warner, Apple Music, Class 95, and Love 972 in this mix. You can see how the purple has gone down from in the middle to the end, as well as you can see the dropout of Reddit from within this chart to outside of this chart. And probably one thing I'd like to highlight is instant messaging, which is common across both Gen Zs and millennials. You can see WhatsApp in the mix. You can also see Telegram in the mix. Telegram has now become a very important channel where brands like yourself and should be considering create channels to have discussions with the audience.
Zheng, I think we have a question on
Yes.
Spotify. Yeah.
Yes, audio doesn't cover Spotify. It does cover Spotify. However, what I'm showing you is the top 20, right? So Spotify actually is just outside of this chart, unfortunately. All right. Now moving into the next slide, how can we therefore leverage all these media platforms to reach out to the youth? May I hand back to Simone to share with us more?
Thanks, Zheng. Okay, so now that we know the 5 persona, it's important for us to then create the correct experiences so that we are aligned in meeting what they want, right? With that, we've identified 5 different content pillars, namely adulting, seeking success, elevating lifestyle, be well informed, and be entertained. These are our guiding principle in terms of how we set our content direction. But what's also important, what's also important to note is that when we look at our data and do our research, right, we identify actually the youth are heavily centered in 2 particular platforms, YouTube and TikTok. Right, 9 in 10 youth are using YouTube, and in fact on TikTok, 61% of the users are youth. Mediacorp, being the national media network, actually has adopted a customer centricity approach in engaging our audience. And therefore, as you can see today, we no longer just play within our own and operated platform. We have started to invest heavily in the third-party platform. In the next few slides, I'm going to share with you some of these examples on how we have entered into this space to engage the youth. Starting off, how many of you have heard of Wikipo? If I may ask, if you have heard of, please type yes in the chat box. So Wikipo, it's essentially a TikTok IP that we launched. You see, CNA and Today is perfect destination for us to, it's a go-to destination when we want to read about news, and it's very trusted. You know for a fact that there's no fake news there, right? But in today's context, to get the youth to read a 1-page article like that is considered long, right? And that's why we needed to transform ourselves to try to engage the youth better by producing bite-sized videos that's wrapped around with trends and issues that's related to them. And we use a 3 content pillar approach, right? We use Skit to be our explainer on topics that may be a bit more difficult for them to understand. We use VoxPod to gather information on ground, and we interview like-minded youth to share their views on related topics. Now, on the topic of adulting, we also recognize that there is this huge gap in the space, right? Where, so let me just off this first. There's this huge gap in the space where there possibly quite a fair bit of content creators creating content about adulting. but not many touch on transition stages. What is transition? Transition basically means that as you belong to the youth category, there are those that are in the early 30s that are maybe entering into uni, starting their first job or starting their first relationship. Things like this becomes important for us to understand their psychographics and how do we address them. Let me just share with you some clips. Is the audio working? Sorry.
Doesn't seem to be working, although it
Yeah.
was working perfectly fine. Should I do a voiceover?
Let me just try. Oops, it's not working. Strange.
I'm just wondering, maybe just give us a moment. I'm wondering whether the admin team can switch on the volume and enable sound.
Okay, maybe while the admin team works on it, let me just go on and share this other IP. Again, this is another IP that we created because we recognize that there's a gap in this space. Hush is essentially fronted by three girls, Azura, Hazel, and Jermaine, right? The purpose of setting up Hush really is to empower women to discuss topics that are relevant and important to this group of young women. And when we started to create content like this, and when we started to weave ourselves into TikTok and YouTube, the intent really is also to set up very organic destination for us to weave in messages. The youth today can smell it if we are trying to hard sell to them. So we need to be as organic as possible. I was going to share with you the example here, which I couldn't play. It was really because Hush itself, if those people who are familiar with Hush content would know that week after week, the topics that they talk about is heavily centered around relationship and women-related issues. So MINDEF found the opportunity with this as well. So they wanted to change the perception of female officer in the forces. And this became a very natural destination for them. If I can play the video, I will try to share it later.
Yeah, maybe Simone, at this juncture, let me ask you a question. Actually, I found myself gravitating to this content format, but how did this format come about? Like, it's a podcast, but not a podcast, it's on video. How did it even come about?
Okay, so again, coming back to a good question, Jana, coming back to how the youth consume content today, right? Like I shared earlier, getting them to read the one-page article is considered too long for them. They like the short, concise stuff. Only when they're interested, they may, okay lah, I'll spend a bit of time trying to read or watch it, right? So in this space here, what we try to do is that using a singular IP, we become like a central kitchen. We produce the main source of content, and then we reversion it into a format that's on podcast to appeal to youth who just want to listen, don't want to watch. But at the same time, we also created a shorter form content, a bit more concise, and put it up onto TikTok. And then for the youth who has very vested interest to know about certain topics that we share, we have the YouTube for the longer version. Okay, let's see if I can play this now. Sorry, the audio is still not working for me.
Yeah, unfortunately, we may not be. Maybe we can give the admin team one more shot as the presentation progresses. Maybe we can share at the end. Maybe towards the end, while we get it resolved. Let's move on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now switching gears from youth-centric IP, right? Like Wikipo, Hush, and Hot Pot. Now let me bring your attention to 8 Days. 8 Days is a brand that we all know, right? I mean, I saw the profile earlier. We have quite a fair bit of our audience here that would be familiar with 8days. 8days being an online entertainment portal, it's a trusted brand. But we saw the opportunity to be able to pivot this to target youth by using a vertical, a segment that is really transient to people of all ages, which is food, right? And when we enter this space, we deliberately moved away from doing let me introduce you the top 10 bak chor mee, the top 10 carrot cake stall. We wanted to layer a human story with every food content that we put out there. And that has proven to be successful for us. Within the short period, we launched it late last year. We garnered 1 million likes, and we are now the top 10 food TikTok content creator in Singapore, which is very encouraging, right? And then moving on from 8days, I also wanted to share this, which is very interesting. Who would have thought that, you can transform radio? At one point in time, people were saying, hey, radio is dead regular, but it's not true. If you look at our weekly reach numbers, right, collectively, our youth brands, which is what I've listed here now, 987, 933, and we are reaching about 48% of the SG population on a weekly basis. Radio today is on FM space, but what we have done is to reinvent audio experience by transforming that onto TikTok. So now on TikTok, you will be able to hear our DJs, see our DJs, and engage with them. There are multiple live streams that goes on a weekly basis where our DJ will take on the role of going onto TikTok, engaging our audience, and in fact, they will play music alongside with it as well. Just 2 days ago, Sonia was helming a TikTok live segment. Guess what was she doing? She wasn't doing the usual FM conversational pieces, but in fact, she was showing her audience. She's going on the bandwagon by cooking a TikTok trend on instant noodle. So the entire 45 minutes was her showing her audience how she was cooking, and then she was eating the noodle and her comment on the noodle, right? So moving forward, we are actually getting our DJs to have that front-facing face so that they go beyond just audio. In today's context, the kind of experiences that we need to create for our youth cannot be singular. And this is the reason why we are investing heavily in this space. So I hope that, by sharing some of this example, it gives you a bit of insight how we are adopting our approach in reaching the 5 different types of persona.
Yep. Simone, as looking at this slide, as radio revenue steward myself, I can really appreciate the effort behind this. Not beyond having to deal with the shift towards digital audio, this pivot towards social media has made us even more relevant, right? Leveraging not just the strength of our station's accounts, but also individual DJs' strong following. Now, maybe at this juncture, we can take a question. It's coming from anonymous attendee, okay? And this is question number 3. Considering how quickly trends change, especially with the youth, how can you stay on top of this shift and make sure your material is still relevant to this ever-changing audience? Maybe Simone, you can go first before I'll throw it to Mandy.
Sure. Yeah, that's a constant struggle internally, right? You correctly pointed out, trends changes so fast. Today, there may be one of the trend is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this dance on TikTok that is hugely popular. It's like Sleep, the one where you dance on the side. Yeah. Yes, that's right. But if you're too slow on it, and then you lose that kind of engagement with your right audience, right? So what we typically do internally is we have a team of folks that constantly studying the TikTok trends, and we work very closely with the TikTok team as well, where they share with us on a very regular basis, on a global basis, within Singapore, what is trending, right down to the songs that are trending. one thing to note, if you want your content to trend on TikTok, really start to infuse or embed music that are trending at that point in time, so that your video gets surfaced easier.
What about Mandy? Any thoughts on this? Or are we currently overly anticipating your section of the presentation?
Yeah, I think I'll touch a bit on that, on like, the trends and their speed
All
later as well.
right. Yeah, so maybe I can just share some insights while the slides are coming up. While working with our research team and the team that does social listening, namely Bloomer as well as Social Hub, what we have actually discovered is there is a pattern to trends, right? Many trends start off from the likes of US, from Europe, from Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, as well as Korea. And within a certain lead time, they will make its way in Singapore. So that is one way to anticipate trends. However, the other way, maybe I'll share with everyone at the end. And without further ado, we can Mandy share with us what Babelfish is all about and what she does there.
Yeah, hi. So Babelfish is a relatively new product on the market. So I'm gonna just quickly take you guys through what it's about. The technical answer is that it's actually a joint venture between Mothership and Mediacorp. It's a media product targeting Gen Z and young millennials. So we are looking at audiences between 18 to 28 years old. As for what it actually is as a creative product, we cover the social media ecosystem and its inhabitants. So specifically, we're looking at personalities, looking at trends and phenomena as well. And we look at the things they stand for, how they move, and how it's expressed through these personalities, right? And the way people react and engage with them. Yeah. And all this comes together as an amplification of the Gen Z culture that we see today. So on the left, I think we have a couple of examples that particularly resonated with the youth, So topics like interracial couples and like online phenomena like YouTube vigilantes causing South Korean authorities to worry. We'll get into that a bit more. But I also want to emphasize, yes, before I go into that, a lot of people have actually asked me, what is a Babelfish? How did the name come about? It's actually inspired by a fictional character in Douglas Adams' book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So it's a fish that when you stick into your ear, it translates any known language in the universe to your main language. So you will immediately be able to understand, what the other party is saying. And we thought that we wanted to be that voice of commonality for youth in the region, in Southeast Asia specifically. Yeah. And another thing that I also wanted to touch on was the speed of evolution. I think Babelfish as a product will continue to evolve. I think the definition that you just saw will continue to change a lot. Because what do all these things have in common? They are apparently very outdated. You do any of these things, you are identified as a millennial. Even more shocking to me, apparently memes are also updated now. I'm sorry, Zheng, you spend quite a bit of effort doing the memes on your slide.
Yeah, oh my God, like Mandy, how could you even let me present this to the audience? But really what this means, we thought that there was a lesson there here, was that, just as I step out of being a youth, now I'm past 34, it really shows how fast these things evolve and how the new group resonates to totally different things, right? And the speed that we have to adjust to as brands.
Yeah, it's quite crazy because memes, I think they used to be outdated in weeks and then days, and then now they are entirely outdated. But I hear the side part is coming back as well. So really changing fast, the trends. Yeah, so what type of content actually resonates with the youth? I've broken them down into two segments. So the first that we're looking at is issue-driven content. I think Simone mentioned just now, like there's an archetype of youth that are social advocates, right? And I think that because there's so much of them now on the internet, issue-driven content tends to resonate with them. And what do I mean by issue-driven content? So a lot of them, I find that a lot of our content on Babelfish that concern like topics of sexuality, racism, cultural exchanges tend to do really well with the youth. They don't just like and share, but they engage in discussion as well with like other users on social media. And these are just some examples of like more recent news that have elicited like strong responses from our readers. So as you can see, they concern topics of racism, of like cultural differences, and also of school bullying. So all these topics are really close to youth. Yeah. And I think another one that Zheng mentioned previously was also like mental wellness. And I think these topics tend to create a certain worldview. They contribute to a certain worldview, and the person, okay, I do think that the person at the heart of the issue matters. If it's somebody like famous or popular, like an influencer or a celebrity, the issue does get amplified more. But in the current age, I think any topic that resonates will still get their attention. Doesn't matter, even if it's a nobody at the heart of it. Yeah. And the second segment that I wanted to get into is positive and heartwarming content. The kind of engagement that I'm looking at here is more qualitative, sorry. Yeah, so quantitative, we'll be talking about our likes and shares, our comments, and basically page views and numbers, the hard facts. But if we are talking about qualitative, it's also the way the audience engages with your brand. I find that youth these days, they are looking for just something positive on the internet because they are constantly being bombarded by bad news everywhere, right? And they've been living through the pandemic, they've been living through like wars and stuff, and they can get quite fatigued from the constant stream of bad news. And then when we publish something that's positive, that's heartwarming, will actually like, thank us for like sharing such a piece of news. So here are some examples as well of like internationally heartwarming news, people reuniting with their parents through social media, and things that are going viral online, personal stories, things that Babelfish covers. But I do also think that for such a trope or such a topic, there is a chance of a backlash. So usually my personal opinion is that brands shouldn't be trying too hard. It can appear contrived or insincere. So I have an example here. There's this TikToker who hit like $50 notes around Singapore. And I thought it was a nice gesture actually. He sees it as his way of giving back to the community, for like those who need the money to find it around Singapore, help them with their groceries. Unfortunately, that was not how the internet reacted. I saw, in fact, quite a bit of negative comments on multiple platforms. So they were actually accusing him of like doing it for fame, for the followers, accusing him of taking back the money after he filmed the TikTok. I think this is something that we can all learn a lesson from. Maybe not this specific instance, but how it translates for our publications and our brands, right? To not appear like insincere and to show that you genuinely want to help rather than just to make content of it or get a better brand image of it. Another thing that I was thinking about was that, because youth these days, they have another currency besides money. I think previously we had this era where a lot of young people were, I think, aspiring to be influencers because of like sponsorships and all that. They want like to go for free stuff. They want to earn money through social media postings. These days, I think another currency that looking at is clout or fame. Unfortunately, clout has a bit of negative connotations there. So we have to be careful, I think, how we come across as a brand to these young people. We don't want them to think of us as chasing clout or just doing it for fame. Yeah. I think the best way to do that is really just to share something or create something that you personally believe in and be like authentic in your own viewpoint. Yeah. So lastly, I want to touch on form versus content. I think when creating our content, a lot of us think about what we want to put inside, what our messaging will be. Another aspect to that, I think, is the how. So I've broken it down into three parts: the format, the tone, and the front-facing elements, and we'll get into that. So the format is, where do you think you can put it? It brings with it the question of where as well, or how do you think it's best expressed? Does it work as a short video, as a TikTok, as a long form video on YouTube, as a live session, or as a post? All that will, I think, help to present your content better in a better format to reach youth and also your audience demographics. Second one is tone. Drawing from my own experience at Mothership, I think we were better able to reach youth because we could afford to take a casual and conversational tone. I think we were lucky to have that creative space as well. So from what I hear, a lot of people tell me that they like to read Mothership because it's digestible. It's in a friendly tone, it's like their friend telling them something. So I understand that, as a brand, you might not be able to take on like a very friendly or overly casual tone, but you might have to find your own niche to connect with your audience, like as a brand. And that's why influencers and TikTokers tend to do quite well. Like personalities are really doing well on TikTok because they have this like personal connection. They just put a camera down in front of them and they talk to their viewers like their friends, and they're just having a casual chit-chat session. And that's where the connection comes. Yeah. The last one I want to talk about is front-facing elements. So whenever you publish a piece of content, there will be a few elements that the readers or the viewers will see immediately. That's your headline, cover photo, caption, and hook. So for the headline, I think part of it is also your angling. So how you want to present the story. What is the main point, the crux of the story that you want to put in headline? And for us, publishers, headline real estate is very precious. So we really pick and choose every word carefully, but you also want to do that without misleading people, without leaving out important context. That's one thing to take note of. And the cover photo should also, like a cover photo or your thumbnail, depending on what platform you're on, should also complement the headline, add on to it, make people excited and want to read it. And your caption, I see sometimes that when people publish things, their caption is just repeated from their headline. I think that is not optimum use of social media. It should again complement your headline. It can act as a teaser of what's in the article to let people want to click in and find out more. You can also make a joke like and from the headline. Yeah, that usually works for Mothership specifically. And also the hook, right? Which is the first few lines or first few seconds of the content. Because with so much content out there, if the first few seconds of your content doesn't catch people's attention, they're just gonna scroll away. And a lot of brands start by, or even publications start by, oh, today we're gonna tell you about this. Or have you ever, or they start with a rhetorical question, do you ever feel sleepy after lunch? And then, the moment the answer is no, like they don't care about this topic, that's it, it's over for your content. So we try to avoid that as well. So these are just some practical tips that we try to practice every day. Yeah. Yeah. I will pass.
Yes, I will be back. Yes. Thanks, Mandy. We have come towards the end of this webinar. We'd like to maybe just share with you some of the key takeaways that you can take back and apply as you reach out and engage the youth on a sustainable way. I think number one is leverage platforms that youth are spending most time and most engaged in. We have started to look beyond what is the reach of the youth, but where are they spending the most time in? Because where they spend their most time, you will have multiple opportunities to engage with them as well as reach them and to speak with them, right? Point number two, craft content with messages specific to their current life stage and the multiple personas that they may take on concurrently. Like Simone shared with regards to the different personas, it's not a discrete group. It's something that you may flow in and out depending on the situation. So speak specifically to a persona, otherwise you're not speaking to any of them at all, right? And the last one is definitely create opportunities for expression and involvement. I'm wondering at this juncture, Simone, would you like to add something to this?
Okay. I do feel that, point number two, that crafting of content with specific messaging is important. Actually, the other important aspect to take note of is really be authentic, which is why, as I shared the 5 personas earlier, right? We've also started looking at our Mediacorp personalities, aka our DJs. How do we map them to the respective personas so that each of them can represent the different stages of you in a very authentic manner? And my DJs today are very open to showing their true self. I mean, if you take a look at the station's TikTok account, you will see multiple crazy videos of them. They're not like they're proper folks, but because they're willing to showcase their true self in front of the camera, so viewers and audiences can relate to them in that manner.
All right, what about Mandy? Any last words to share with our audience here?
Not really. Follow Babelfish, thank you.
All right, maybe I would like to maybe reiterate one point that engagement is not developed overnight. It's really a test pivot. That spirit needs to be there, especially with the use and the trends that come and go really, really very quickly. Brands are going to have to put in the work and really write the unfolding story consistently over time. And at this juncture, we may just take some questions. Are there still some questions? Oh yes, we do have a question. What are your thoughts on brands incorporating Gen Z lingo to stay relevant? Maybe Mandy, you can take this question.
I think it depends on what brand it is. I think if you're a naturally younger brand, a product that's relevant to them, that might not be so bad. If you are, say, a MNC, like SQ, Cathay Pacific, like a very big brand, and you really are trying very hard without that self-awareness that it's maybe not working for you, it can come across as cringy. I think the things about trying this kind of new trends is that a certain degree of self-awareness has to be there. Yeah. I think people can tell when you're trying too hard. Yeah. But I mean, you will get attention. So depends on whether you want to get that kind of attention or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to just apply what I do in the workplace, we do have Gen Zs. Sometimes I'll go like, hey girl, slay, I do feel I'm trying too hard, but I guess somewhat they appreciate it, right? So I think it's also about the attempt sometimes to even try and relate to them, because an attempt is better than no attempt. And from there, we can therefore sharpen our communications. Unfortunately, we may not get it right the first time, but over time, we definitely will do. All right, let's see whether we have any more questions. Maybe this is for Simone. Interesting one. And this shall be our last question. Is there another way to leverage on trending music? Is there another way to tap on trends?
This is always a very sensitive question because, the music rights fees, it's always at the back of our mind, right? But I would really suggest that so depending on what account you're using, if you're using a personal account, there is no harm going into uploading the trending music that TikTok already put up. But the minute you are a brand, you're fronted by a brand account, it's a bit sensitive. That's when I encourage you to get in touch with TikTok and speak with them and see how they can help you in this area, because this is the area that we are also struggling in the space of music rights. The kind of payment that, putting TikTok aside, the kind of music rights payment that we pay on all the other platforms is crazy.
All right, I guess that actually probably is a way for this music industry to make up for the lack of CDs that we're buying these days, right? All right, let me call, and we are 10:59. We are good on time. And maybe let us wrap up and share with you what's upcoming next in the webinar. We have a focus on mental health and wellness. So optimizing efficiency through health and wellness is coming up in 7 December. Same time, same audience, hopefully. If you're interested in this topic, feel free to scan this QR code to register now. Otherwise, look out for the information on the Mediacorp LinkedIn post, yeah, as well as the Mediacorp website. All right. And that is all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We are Executive Insights by Mediacorp. You will be able to catch this on the Mediacorp website through the video recording. Share it with your friends. But otherwise, if you prefer the audio version, you will be able to find it on podcasts across the likes of Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for joining us today. See you next time. And thank you,
See you.
Simone and Mandy, for joining us.
See you. Thank you.
We had a great time. Thank you.